One of the best features of Google Drive is Google Forms. Google Forms started out as a way to make surveys, and teachers very quickly saw that this was an easy way to make online quizzes, online tests, or online surveys to use in the classroom. If you've already used Google Forms in your classroom, you know that it's a time saver, a paper saver, and students actually like getting in and taking a quiz that way. If you're new to Google Forms, this tutorial will show you how to set one up and use it in your classroom. If you've already been using Google Forms, there have been quite a few changes and upgrades in the past 10 to 12 months, so you'll get to learn how to use all those new upgrades. The first thing you need to do is in your Google Drive screen is click on the New button, and down here under More you'll see Google Forms. Go ahead and click that, and you will get this template that will help you set up your questions. The first thing I like to do is name my form. So we're going to call this the practice test, and click OK. And if you notice, it pops up here. It also titles your quiz. If you'd like the quiz to have a different title than the actual title of the document, you can change this by simply clicking on it, highlighting it, and calling it something else. I'm going to call it the trivia quiz. Once you do that, it won't change your title up here. It'll just change the title that students see when they open up the quiz. Some decisions you need to make before you start putting in your questions are these choices up here. These are the form settings. There are some things you can choose. You can require students to log in with their domain name. That would be what looks like their email address for your school's domain. You can require that when they sign in. I never require that. That's one extra step that they can get lost in, so I just take that out. It'll give you a warning. I click OK. You can automatically collect the respondent's username. You can only do that if you have this require the login information toggled. That means in the spreadsheet where the answers are collected, you'll also see their username. I personally haven't seen any need for that at this point. However, if you are emailing students the results of their quiz, the results of the survey back to their Gmail email account, then you definitely want to toggle these two. For the purposes of this, we're going to take those out. You can show a progress bar at the bottom of the form pages if you want to show students how quickly they're finishing the quiz. You can use that or not. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It depends on how many pages there are in my quiz. Sometimes I make it one long page, sometimes I add pages. I'll show you how to do both. Here, you can allow only one response per person. This one requires a login. If you have this toggled, you can also have this toggled. Students won't be able to use this particular login to answer twice. I haven't used that either. I've never had a student want to take a quiz more than once. That will depend on the students you have in class. Also, this is something that you might use, especially if you have a one-to-one in your class. You can shuffle the question order. A lot of us, when we make a test, we make 2 or 3 versions so that students sitting next to one another don't have the exact same questions in the exact same order. Here, you just click Shuffle Question Order, and every time a student or a different student opens up this quiz, the questions themselves will be in a different order. What you want to make sure that you're doing is don't number your questions if this one is toggled. And really, in Google Forms, there's no need to number your questions. They come up automatically, and there's no answer document plus test form to make sure that everything is aligned. This does it for you. So at this point, we are ready to put in our very first question. So my first question, and these are just going to be basic trivia questions, nothing school related here. My first question is, what decade, let's make it proper English, in which decade was Madonna born? So this is the question title. Question title just means question. Now you can give help text. This might cover anything from please answer in a complete sentence to please choose the best answer. Sometimes I use this, sometimes I don't. Once again, that just depends on how familiar your students are with using Google Forms and how familiar they are with the type of test you're giving. I'm going to show first just a multiple choice question. There are all sorts of different types of questions students can answer. They can answer text, which would be like a fill in the blank, a paragraph text, which is a longer answer, multiple choice. These first three are the ones you're probably going to use for your quiz. Down here, if you're giving a survey, there are things like text boxes, choose from a list, scale, a grid, date and time. Those would be really helpful if you're having students or parents even fill out a survey. Right now, we're just really going to stick with these first three. We're going to focus on quiz making. So at this point, you want to put in your choice, your answer, and your distractors. So we're going to go with the 40s, the 50s, which is the correct answer, which is shocking that she was born in the 50s, but she was. And we'll put in a couple more distractors here so that students have 4 choices. Now you notice I didn't put in A, B, C, or D like we normally would on a multiple choice test because once again, not necessary. Students are going to toggle right next to the answer they want. They don't have to go over to an answer document, bubble anything in. So really those A, B, C, D aren't necessary. If you need them in there for your peace of mind, feel free to just make this letter A, letter B, and so on. I don't feel the need to have them in there, so I'm going to leave them out. There are some other things you can do with each question. You can require this question. That means a student cannot submit until they've answered this question. I require all questions, so nobody can leave anything blank. We always tell students don't leave anything blank. This forces them to answer everything. There's also an advanced settings option, and for multiple choice, the only one you have are shuffle option order. This will also help if you have students sitting right next to each other so that they don't have the same answers in the same order. It may depend on what your distractors are, whether or not you want to shuffle these options. I'm going to go ahead and shuffle them so that every student who opens them up will get these in a random order. Once you have everything in the order that you like it, everything set up how you want it, you just click done, and this is what your question is going to look like. Now let's say I've decided that I don't want these shuffled. I don't want these choices and distractors shuffled. So I'm going to click on it, it opens it back up. You can go back to advanced settings and untoggle the shuffle option order. Click done, and it's done again. Now some of you are probably thinking, hang on, I already have all these quizzes made, I already have all these tests typed, they're all in documents, I do not want to type them again. You don't necessarily have to. It will take a little time, but all you have to do is copy and paste. And I'm going to show you that on the next question. To add another question, you come down here to this little button that says Add Item. If you just click on Add Item, it will add the same type of question that you previously asked. Since we asked a multiple choice question, it will add a multiple choice question. Now I'm going to put this one in the trash to show you how you add a different style of question. The little arrow next to it, you can add all sorts of things here. You can add text, the paragraph text, the multiple choice. You can also add a video, an image, and we'll get into those a little bit later. I'm going to stick with a multiple choice question and show you how to use tests that you already have created. Now, one of the nice things about the Google web browser is that you can actually move your tabs around, and I'm going to move my tabs around so that I have in the very first tab my questions. These are questions that I've already have typed. They're in a Google document. They're ready to go. This could be a PDF, it could be a website, anything that you can put in a tab here. The next tab over is my practice test, the thing that I'm creating. And I have this nifty extension, and in another video I'll show you how to add extensions. There is a split screen option. I'm going to go ahead and click on it, and you can do this manually. It's very easy creating 2 screens. And here you have your quiz on the left-hand side, and once you click over here, you have your questions. Now that we have our 2 screens up, over here on the right, we have our questions that we've already created, maybe we've used it for years, and over here we have our form. I want to take these questions and put them over here into this new form. It's going to take a little bit of time, but the time you're going to save at the copier and grading, it'll be totally worth it. So how to get these questions from here to here is just a matter of copying and pasting. So I have here ready to go a question. I'm going to highlight and copy the question, and I'm just going to paste it into the question field over here on the left. Then to get the choices in, you notice I've taken away the A, B, C, and D. If you're going to shuffle your answers, that's if you're having students sit right next to each other and you want to make sure there's no eyeballing or cheating, you want to make sure you take away those A, B, C, and D. Sometimes I leave them in. I don't care if they're in a different order. If you don't like that, take them away. Copy them all. As long as they are one beneath another, they will populate over here under the choices very easily. You put your cursor into the first option and paste, and you notice they populate right in. I'm going to go to the advanced settings and I'm going to shuffle the order, and I'm also going to make this a required question so that students can't skip it. I'm going to go ahead and click done. If you notice here, we have 2 questions already asked. You can do this with this entire list of questions. I'm going to do one more just to show you what that looks like one more time. So I'm going to add an item, and if you notice you add an item, it will pop up to the same type of question that you asked previously. And I'm going to come over here to my already created quiz, and you do this for quizzes that you already have created in another form. I'm going to put the question in the question field, paste it, and I'm just using the Control C and Control V to copy and paste. And then I'm going to highlight and copy my choices. I'm going to put it in the first choice or the option 1 field, and I'm going to paste. Oh, and I accidentally got the option 1 still in there. You can just highlight it and delete it. You notice here the A, B, C, D are still there. If you want to leave them there, that's fine. But remember, if you're going to advanced settings and shuffling the order, these A, B, C, and D will be out of order. For high school students, that probably won't be an issue. Younger students, that might confuse them a little bit, so you might want to get rid of your A, B, C, and D. I'm going to leave them just to show you what that looks like in the live form. So I'm going to shuffle the order and make this a required question and click done. You know that you've made a question required if you see the little red asterisk next to the question. If it's there, that means it's required and students can't submit until they've given an answer for that question. Now let's look at some other options you have for questions, and I'm going to make my screen big again. To do that in the Chrome browser, all you have to do is click this square up in the top, and you'll pop back up to a nice big screen, make it a little easier to see. At this point, I'd like to add a video for my students to watch and then answer some questions about the video they see. You can do this right here in the form. Students don't have to go to an outside source or open a new tab to watch a video. They can watch it right in the quiz. To do that, I'm going to go down here to the Add Item button, and I'm going to click on the arrow. You have quite a few choices here. The very last one is video. There are 2 ways to add a video. You can do a video search. However, I found that that takes a little bit of time and you don't get a huge selection of video choices, just usually the top 100 or so. What I like to do is go to YouTube, find what I want, and paste or use the URL to paste it in. To find the URL, you go to YouTube, find your video, and then simply copy the web address. And I'm just going to highlight it, click on copy, and then go back to my form. Once I'm here, I can paste this URL. You'll get a thumbnail to make sure that you have the right one. You can even preview it here by clicking play. I already know this is the one I want to use, so I'm going to go ahead and click select. And you can give this video a title, you can center it, you can give it a caption. If you don't like this video, you can change it. This is the one I want, so I'm going to go ahead and click done. Then I'm going to add my question that goes along with this video underneath. You could even, I'm going to click on it again, please watch the video and answer the question below. Once again, the more times that your students use forms to take a quiz, the less information you'll have to give them. They'll be old pros. Now I'm going to ask a multiple choice question. Oh, I clicked on add question, and you know the add question button creates the same kind of question that you just asked. So you have to make sure that you change that by using the down arrow. And I'm going to click on multiple choice, and it's going to add another multiple choice question. So my question is, which theme is illustrated in the video? And you have to make sure that everything's proofread, because your students will point out typos to you. And my choices are going to be supernatural, good and evil, sight and blindness, and power and corruption. You notice that here we're not putting any of the correct answers in. There's no way to actually do that at this point. You'll do that when you grade with Flubaroo, and I'll show you that a little later in the video. Now I do want to shuffle the questions again, and I want to require this question so students can't skip it. And I'm going to click Done. So here we have a 3-question quiz, and I want this question to go first. But as you can see, it's not first, it's last. Very easy to change the order of things. You simply hover over whatever question you'd like to move until you get this crosshair and drag it to where you'd like it to go. I'm going to drag it all the way to the top. Then I'm going to grab the question that goes along with that video and put it just underneath. And it'll give you a little preview there of where it's going to pop in. Now I have the questions in the order I want. If you are using videos or pictures, make sure that you get rid of this shuffle question order. If you have it on shuffle question, the video might show up above or below the wrong question. So I'm going to get rid of shuffle question order since I have this video here. Each video or picture you add in becomes its own individual question, and it acts independently of the others if you have this shuffle question order toggled. Alright, the last thing I want to show you is how to add a picture. Happens in almost exactly the same way as adding a video. You're going to come down here to Add Item, click the down arrow, and you're going to click Image. Same thing, you're going to get a pop-up box. You can add by URL, you can add pictures from your Google Drive, your albums, you can upload something that's saved on your computer, you can do a search, you can search through Google, Life, or stock images. I'm going to search through Life, and I'm going to type in King Lear and see what kind of pictures we get. I'd like my students to identify which play one of these pictures come from. Now, Life doesn't always have a huge amount of choices, so I don't like that. I'm going to try a Google search. Here we go. Now this one is for students who are reading or have read King Lear, this one definitely looks like King Lear and his 3 daughters. So I'm going to go ahead and simply click on it, click Select, and the picture pops up. So I'm going to type in the question, from which of Shakespeare's plays does this picture come? How about just which of Shakespeare's plays does this picture represent? That's a better question. This would be great if you were doing maybe an author study. You can use pictures to represent the different books or stories from the author. This one is also, these kinds of questions are really great for students who are a different kind of learner. So same thing, you're going to click Done, and then you're going to add whatever question you want them to answer underneath. We want it to be multiple choice. And since I already asked the question up here, I don't need to put in a question title or help text. You never actually need to do that. Here I'm just going to put in my choices. My choices are King Lear, Macbeth, The Tempest, Oh, I don't know what happened to my choices. Let's try that again. King Lear, Macbeth, The Tempest, and Romeo and Juliet. All right. Once again, I'm going to shuffle my option order and required this question. Shuffle is nice. Then you don't have to worry about, oh, how many of the questions have the first choice as the answer, how many have the second choice as the answer. You can put them in any order. Now I have here a completed quiz. I'm not going to ask any more questions on this one. And once again, you can go on and on and on this one. Now something some people like to do is ask one question per page. You can actually add in page breaks. The way to do that is to come down to Add Item, once again the little arrow, and one of your choices is Page Break. And you get this. You can title the page, or you can just make it a page break. It looks like this. It's called Untitled Page, and you can put this in between so that students only see a certain number of questions at a time. For a short quiz, I don't think it's necessary. So for this little quiz, I'm actually going to get rid of it. To get rid of a question, this untitled page question, you just hover over it. You'll get these three options to edit, to duplicate, or to trash. We're going to trash it. And if you notice, it goes away. At this point, we're almost ready. Something I've purposefully left out up to this point is a way for students to identify themselves. Now, there are lots of different ways to do this. There are lots of different theories. There are lots of different schools of thought. I'm going to show you how I do it and tell you some ways that I've seen other teachers do it. What I like to do is ask students to add their first name, their last name, and the class that they are in, the class period that they see me. So to do that, it's very simple. Once again, you go down here to the Add Item, and you click the down arrow. This time we want to add a text question. So I'm going to click on Text, and I just type in first name. I always make these required. There's nothing worse than a paper turned in with no name on it. And there's nothing to shuffle, so for advanced settings, you can do a data validation. This is if you're having students put in a number value, like maybe their phone number. You want to make sure that they put in a 10-digit number. You can do that here. I don't get that fancy on quizzes. If you're doing a survey, you may need something like that. I'm going to go ahead and click Done. I like to separate the first name and the last name. It makes it easier to sort students once they're in a spreadsheet. I'm going to add another item, and I'm going to type in last name. I'm going to make it required, of course. Click Done. I'm going to add one more item, and this time I want my students to choose the class period that they see me. Now this isn't going to be a text. I'm going to give them very specific choices. So here I want them to answer a multiple choice question. So I'm going to type in class period, and my options are 1, 2, 3, and 4. And wouldn't it be lovely if we only taught 4 classes? So hopefully some of you only have to teach 4 classes. And I'm going to make that a required question and click Done. Now, I like these to be the very first questions that students answer right here at the top of the quiz. So once again, we're going to hover over the question and move it where we'd like it to show up on the quiz. If you want their students' names to be the first questions that they answer, once again, you're going to have to make sure that shuffle question order isn't on there. But if you remember, each of these questions have the shuffle on so that their choices are shuffled, which hopefully that will help cut down on those wandering eyes. I'd also like the last name to come up here to the top, so I'm just going to grab it and move it. Gives you a little preview of where it's going to pop in. And the class period. Oh, I just want to hover over it, not click on it. I did it again. So I'm hovering over it, grab it, and I'm going to put this right under last name. Now, you may be sharing this quiz with some other teachers. Another question you may want to ask is, who's your English teacher if this is for an English class? Or who's your math teacher if this is for a math class? You can do that in the exact same way by adding an item, and I want to add a multiple choice. Who is your English teacher? This is also a good way to see if your students know your name. So I just put in last names, Lyons, Smith, and Connors. And I'm going to make this a required question as well. Once again, if multiple teachers are using this same quiz, this will make it easier to sort through and find just your students. Now, if you'd like to have your very own quiz that isn't intermingled with anyone else's, but yet everyone would like to give the same quiz, it's very simple. You take the quiz you have, you click on File, and make a copy. It will make a completely independent copy of this. You can then share it out, that copy out with the other teachers that would like to use it. Or once again, you can just all use the same quiz and sort the spreadsheet, which I'll show you later on in the video. So at this point, we have it all set up how we'd like it. And actually, I'm going to move this "Who is your English teacher" up here to the top, just because I like all these identification questions all together. All right, so here we go. We have a completely finished quiz. Once you have all your questions created, there are a couple more things you need to do before you can push this out to students. The first thing you need to do is click on this square right here, this tab that says View Responses. Now, since I've already used Forms, I can't show you exactly what it looks like, and if you've already used Forms, you don't need to do this step again. This is a one-time thing. You click on this View Responses tab, and if you've never used Forms before, you'll get a pop-up. And in that pop-up, it'll ask you where you want to save your student responses. And you'll just make sure that a new spreadsheet is always toggled. That's the place you want all of your students' answers to go. There are a couple of other choices you can make at this point. You can allow only one response per person. If you do that, you also have to have this login to view the form toggled. So those would both have to be check marked. That's a choice you can make. And there are a couple of things down here at the bottom. You can show a link to submit another response. So after students have answered all the questions and submitted, they can submit another one. That would be if you're voting for something, like maybe you're voting for homecoming or you're voting for the name of the new class pet, and students can vote as many times as they want. You would toggle this. Another one is to allow responders to edit responses after submitting. If you allow that, maybe you want students to go back and check, or you're looking at maybe a formative assessment where you're looking to see if students have mastery or if they know where to go to find mastery. You can check that. Students can click the edit button once they've submitted, and they'll be given a link that takes them back to their personal quiz. That's something that they would have to keep track of. I'll show you that later, what that looks like later in the video. So I'm going to toggle that just so that our quiz looks like that when we get to that point. Once you've done that, you're ready to go. Everything looks as it should, and you're going to click on this tab that says View Live Form. That's going to take you to what your students will see. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And here is our quiz. And if you notice, there are places for students to fill in the fields for first name, last name, class period. If you are using a system that doesn't have Google email set up for your students yet, you may want to ask them for their email address. That would be here. And then all of the questions. So this is where they can answer. At this point, it looks pretty plain. It's just a blue background, white form, gray questions. I'm going to show you how you can personalize this in a little bit. But what I'd like to show you now is what happens once your students answer. How do you get their answers? Where are they? Where do they save? So if you go to your Google Drive, wherever you created this quiz, and I actually created it in a folder called Google Forms. If you just open up your Drive and click New, it's just going to be in your Drive homepage. And if you'll notice, here's my practice test. That's the form that we just created. Underneath of it, there's another practice test, and this time it says responses. This is where your students' answers are being collected. This is a spreadsheet. You do not have to create this. Google creates this for you. That's what happened when we clicked on this view responses, and you had to click on create in a new spreadsheet or save in a new spreadsheet. You do that one time. You'll never have to do that again. That's a one-time deal. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what the responses look like. Once this opens up, I had some of my Facebook friends answer these questions. And as you can see, there's a time and date stamp. That is automatic. There's no way to get rid of that. You can hide it from your spreadsheet, but it does show you when students answered these questions. And if you notice, here's the first question: in which decade was Madonna born? And all of the students that answered this, or all of the people that took this quiz, all of their responses came up here. Now, at one point, I had collect students' users name toggled, so that actually became a column in my spreadsheet. Now, I didn't use it. I ended up untoggling that. But once you toggle it, it does stay here. You can't delete it, but you can hide it, and I'll show you how to do that. If you come up here to the C, there's a little arrow. You'll just click on it, and it says hide column. If you hide the column, it'll go away. If you want it back, you click on the side-to-side arrow, and it comes back. We're going to go ahead and hide it. And here are all the answers. Now, if you look here, this was the question where we left the A, B, C, and D on there because, multiple choice questions usually have an A, B, C, and D because students are normally matching up a question to an answer document. We don't have an answer document here, and I left those in just to show you that the A, B, C, and D when you're using Google Forms is really unnecessary. If you look down here, I have the student's first name, the student's last name, their class period, and who's your English teacher. I like to see those first when I open up my spreadsheet. Very simple to move. You can rearrange this spreadsheet in any way you'd like by clicking on the letter above your column. And once the little white hand appears, you click and drag it. And if you see a little gray vertical line is showing up, that's where this column is going to pop up once you let go. Sometimes it takes a moment. There, the first name column is now one of the first things you see. I'm going to do the same thing with the last name. And this organization will be completely up to you and what you like to see, how you like to see it. Oh, let my class period pop way down here and column O. If that happens, you can just drag it and move it again. And I'm going to do that one more time with who is your English teacher. Just click on it, wait for the white hand to appear, and drag it into whichever position you'd like. Now at this point, I don't think who is your English teacher is all that important because I only care about all of the answers, not just a specific teacher's answers. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that one. But we are going to bring it back in a little bit. Now that we've taken a look at student responses, let's talk about what happens when you want your quiz to end. I'm going to take you back to the form template. Once again, this is where we created our questions. There are a couple of things you can do here. Under responses, that's up here in your top tabs, it'll say responses, and you'll have a little number in parentheses that'll tell you how many responses you've collected so far. And so far, 27 people have taken this quiz. I'm going to click on it, and you have some choices. Right now, it says accepting responses, so that anyone with access to the link can take this quiz. If you click on it, it'll create this. It says this form has been turned off. That means even if a student or a parent has the link, they can no longer respond to it. And it gives you this basic response that people will see. The form trivia quiz is no longer accepting responses. Try contacting the owner. You can delete this and put in whatever message you'd like. You can put in your email address. You can put in possibly a link that sends them to your website, wherever you'd like them to go. So you can turn off a quiz, maybe if it's something you just want your A-day students to take, or maybe just your first period students, or maybe you're doing a contest or an extra credit assignment and you want to make sure you turn it off at a specific time. You can do it manually like that. Something else you can see here is you can look at a summary of responses. And this is kind of nice to get a snapshot, especially if you're doing a formative assessment. We're going to go ahead and click on that. And it gives you this form, which shows you all of the answers, but in a different format than a spreadsheet. And it even gives you some nice graphs here. It'll show you the correct answer and what students answered as the incorrect answer. Down here are actual questions. Here's the Madonna question. This was my favorite one on here. She was actually born in the 1950s, and a majority of people answered that one incorrectly. So that's something that I'd have to go back and reteach. And I didn't have to go through stacks and stacks and stacks of exit tickets. I just had to take a look at a pie chart. Down here, it also shows the date. It gives you a graph in which the date that things were taken. So this would show you maybe if you're doing a survey that's going to take a long time, when is the best time to send surveys out to people? Maybe they only do it on weekends. Maybe Monday is the best day. So if you're doing something long term, this is a nice little chart to take a look at. So that's the summary of responses. Once again, to find that, you go under responses and click on summary responses. You can also click view responses. That'll take you to your spreadsheet where we've been before. So this is the spreadsheet that we looked at. And also under responses, you can delete all responses. Maybe you're going to use this quiz this semester and you have just a semester-long class and you're going to use it with your students next semester. You can delete this responses, and then when you use your spreadsheet again, it'll take out all of the first semester students. You can do things like change response destination, put it into a different spreadsheet. I've never had to use that, but if you need it, it's right there. Now, I did promise that I would show you how to personalize the look of your quizzes. And we're going to take a look at how to do that now. The very first thing you can do, and you're going to do this once again from the quiz template where we created the questions. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you get the confirmation page. This allows you to give your students a specialized message once they submit. Right now, the default is your response has been recorded. You can put anything in here. You can direct them to the next assignment. You can give them a link to an article you'd like them to read, or just give them basic instructions of what you'd like them to do next. All you have to do is delete and type in what you'd like to tell them. So have a nice weekend. As we're teachers, we like to give quizzes on Fridays. To personalize, you need to make sure that you're in the Change Theme tab. Right now we're in the Edit Questions, so we can add and subtract questions. We're going to go ahead and click on Change Theme. And over here on the right, you'll get a pop-up of all the different pre-made themes that Google has. There are a bunch of different ones. Here's a science theme, and it'll pop up in preview over here. This one's nice, however, the questions are in kind of a light color, so that might be difficult for some of your students to see. They have a very simple blue form, and then there's also a pink one. There are all sorts of choices. What I like to do is I like to choose one that's very basic. So I'm going to go back to our original. And then if you click on this Customize, you can change all sorts of things. You can add in a header image, and it says Choose Image, and that's going to allow you to choose an image that you already have saved to your computer. Now, I don't have one saved yet, So I'm going to go ahead and click find a picture, and I'm going to type in trivia, and I'm going to go to Google Images. And let's see, I like this one right here. So I'm going to save this one. And I'm just going to save it locally to my computer, so it'll save into my files. I'm going to rename it Trivia. And I'm going to go back to my quiz. And I'm going to click Choose Image under Header Image. And there are some stock choices that you can use. I like to go out and find my own. So I'm going to go ahead and click Upload and choose image, and it'll take you back to your local files, the files that are saved on your computer. And once this pulls up, all you have to do is click on it. We'll give it a moment to upload. Depending on the image, it takes a minute or two. And it should pop up right here at the top. Now you can do some things to it over here, once again, on our right-hand side. You can remove it. Maybe this isn't the one you like. You can center it. You can right or left justify it. I'm going to go ahead and keep it right in the center. Now, let's take a look at the title. That would be Trivia Quiz. You can change the font by clicking on the fonts. You can go to more fonts, which will allow you to go to a much larger list, and I'll take you there. And once you choose one of these fonts, it'll always pop up in your font list. And I want that to be bold, and I'd like it to be bigger. So you click on the T's. Oh, it's already extra large. So that font is kind of small. Maybe I'll pick a different one that might look a little bigger. Let's see. Oh, everyone loves Comic Sans. So let's give that one a try. And I want to change the color. I'd like it to be green. And I'd like it to be in the middle. So now we've customized an image at the top and also our title. We don't have a description in this particular quiz, but if we did, we could use the same process. Now you can take a look at the questions, and this is what I like to do, and this is great, especially if you have students with visual impairment. You can make things larger. If you notice, the questions became bigger. And you can also change the color, although you have to be careful with that also with vision impairments. Let's make these blue just for the sake of giving it a try. Any help text that you added, information that you added underneath the question, you can change those same things. And the options, those would be your choices, your A, B, C, and D. And I'm going to leave it in that font, but I am going to make them a little bit bigger. And I'm going to make the color a little darker. In the form background, which would be here, you can choose a color, and I'm going to choose yellow. And if you notice, it gives it a nice bright color. And also the page background, that's these edges right around here. You can also change the color of those, or you can put an image in it. And for this one, actually, you can just put an image in. So I'm going to choose that same trivia background that we used before, just for the sake of showing you that process again. If you click on upload, it'll take you to your local files. Those are the files saved on your computer. It'll upload, and it'll pop up here in the background. And I kind of like the way that looks. So at this point, everything's finished here. And you can go back to your Edit Questions tab. Once again, it'll take us just to this template where we can add things in. And at any point, if you need to add another question or delete a question, this is where you do it. And I'd like to take a look at the live form. This is what your students will see. If you notice, we have our background, our new color, we have larger questions, larger choices, and here at the top, we have our own personalized image. Maybe that you're sending out something that goes to all students in your school. You could use school colors and your school mascot. This you can really edit any way you'd like. I'm going to show this one more time. And that was just a basic theme. But any of these specialized themes that Google has already created, you can use those as a base and change those same things that we changed on this basic form. So maybe you like the header on the sailing theme, then you can go ahead and customize those in the exact same way. You can change the background, you can change the size of the questions, you can change the size of the choices. All right, and I'm going to leave it in that sailing theme. So I'm going to take a look at the View Live Form again. You just go ahead and click on View Live Form. And you notice once you make a change, it changes it immediately. Now, to get this out to your students so that they can take it either on their tablet, on their laptop, on their smartphone, they need to have this address. And it's a really long, complicated address. A couple of ways you can push this out to students is you can make it a link on your web page. You can use a tiny URL, which vastly shortens this. You can send it out in a remind. Any way that you communicate with students that allows you to add links, you can put this address in. I'm going to go back to the test one more time. And we are going to take a look at one more thing. We are going to look at how do you grade responses once students have turned in, or all your students have turned in their quizzes. The best part about Google Forms is that you can enable an add-on to automatically grade this quiz for you. It'll give you back results, and it'll also show you students who are below a 70%. And it'll also show you which questions students did poorly on as a whole. To do this, the first thing you need to do is go to your live form. That's the form where you can actually answer the questions. Under first and last name, or just full name, you're going to type in the word key. Now, it doesn't have to be the word key. I like to use key because it's the answer key, and it makes it easy to find. If you have 100, 200, or even 1,000 responses, you're going to have to find this. This makes it a little easier if you pick something to name it that you always name it. And for class period and teacher name, for those identifiers, it's not important which one you choose. Once you get down to the actual questions, things that have a right and wrong answer, those you're going to put in the correct answer. So for this one, I know that supernatural is the answer. I know that Madonna was born in the 50s. The most popular names in 1900 were John and Mary. The Liberty Bell gets its name because in the 19th century, it became a symbol of the abolition of slavery. And this is a representation of King Lear. Once you've answered all the questions correctly, go ahead and click Submit. And you'll get your Have a Nice Weekend message or whatever you've put here. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go back to your test responses. That's the spreadsheet that Google created for you. Now, this next step you're only going to have to do once. Once you do it, it will always come up in your forms response sheet. You'll have to do it once. You're going to click on this tab that says Add-ons, and you're going to click on Get Add-ons. You get a pop-up screen with a search bar, and in that search bar, you're going to type Flubaroo. And this is what Flubaroo's icon looks like. It's a little happy face apple. This is free. Go ahead and click on it, and then you're going to be asked to allow Flubaroo to do some things. Don't worry, it's completely safe. This was created by a teacher, and they're not looking to get into your information. So go ahead and click accept. Now we're ready to grade. Once again, we're going to go, you'll get a little message here that says that Flubaroo has been installed. Go ahead back to those add-ons, and if you notice Flubaroo is now in the list, go ahead and click grade assignment. Now it's going to ask you some questions before it'll actually grade. The first step is to look at the types of questions and how you want them graded. There are some choices. 1 to 5 points you can assign to a question. You can skip grading a question altogether. Maybe it's just a formative thing. You want to see how students are going to do in the next unit. And there's one that identifies students. So the first 4 actually on mine identify students by first name, last name, class period, and who's your English teacher. And if you remember back a while ago in the video, we had a spot for username. And even though we hid that, it still shows up as one of the questions. We can't see it, but Flubaroo still sees it. So that's also something that identifies students. So make sure those are clicked. Then on your 4 questions, if you would like to assign them 1 to 5 points, I like multiple choice to all be 1 point. Make sure those are assigned appropriately, and then click continue. On the next screen, it's going to ask you, hey, where do I find the correct answers? And if you remember, we called our correct answer key. So you're going to go ahead and toggle the little bubble next to it and click continue. And at this point, Flubaroo is grading our assignments. And depending on how many responses you have, it takes a few moments. And you can go ahead and click view grades. And if you notice, we have lots of students who score. This is their total points. This is the percentage they earned. Lots of people are in red. So these questions we're going to have to go over, except for Jen H. She got a 75%. And Sally Mae got 100%. But we now have all of our students' scores graded. Now at this point, you can't populate your grade book out of this column, and you can do that with some automatic graders. Flubaroo and Google Forms doesn't do that yet. But at this point, all you need to do is open up your grade book and add these scores into your grade book. And if you're not using this as a grade, maybe just a formative assessment, so you can see a quick snapshot, you don't need to do that at all. Also over here, if you look at our questions, these are our 4 questions, and it'll list them out for you. It'll show you the percentage overall, how all of your students did. It'll also show you up here in the summary, the number of low scoring questions. And our students did poorly on all 4 questions. Now, these grades are going to pop up in the same spreadsheet as the responses. It's just down here on these tabs. You can toggle back and forth. These are all the basic responses, and over here are the grades. There's one last thing you can do with Flubaroo. Once you've graded an assignment, it says email grades. Now, I did not ask for an email address, but you can ask your students in one of the questions, just like we did first name, last name, class period. You can also ask them for their email address. Once you do that, you'll get a pop-up screen, and it'll say email address question. It wants to know in what column in the spreadsheet can Flubaroo find all the email addresses. Now, we didn't have one of those, but if we did, we'd go ahead and click on it. You can include the answer key. You can include a list of questions and scores, or you can just include their score. You can also send a form message to all of your students. However, you don't have to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and click cancel since we didn't have any email addresses in this quiz. Email addresses do not have to be Google addresses. It can be any email address under any format. While I was creating this video, I came across some other add-ons that might be helpful to you to manage your forms. The first one is called the form limiter. What the form limiter does is it will allow you to automatically turn off a form or a quiz on a specific date, or to turn off a quiz once a certain number of people have responded. And that might be really great if you're running some kind of contest, like maybe you'll take the first 25 students to a special lunch, or the first 25 nominations for homecoming, anything like that where you want just a specific number, or you don't want anyone to answer after a specific date. Maybe the event that you're collecting information for will be over. So to do that, you need to go once again to Add-ons and click Get Add-ons. And this is called the Form Limiter. I'll type that into the search bar. Once it pops up, you click on Free, and then you are going to allow it access. And these are all safe. No one's going to hack into any information. Once the form limiter, you'll get a notification that it's there. And you'll get a pop-up over here on the right-hand side, and it'll say limit. And you'll select how you want to limit it. You can limit it by date and time. You can limit it by the maximum number of form responses, or the destination spreadsheet value. So maybe you only want to collect 45. So that would take you down to cell 46 because we have a header. I think maximum number of form responses and date and time are probably the ones you're going to use the most often. So I'm going to click on date and time. And I'm going to type in the date, and actually gives you a nice little calendar here. And I'm going to say that I'm going to stop collecting responses on February 18th. And at the time, and it gives you AM, PM, and also your minutes. So we're going to do it at 11:59 p.m. Oh, it goes in increments of 5. I'm sorry. So you can only do it up to 11:55. And we're going to go ahead and set that. And then you can give a message once the submissions are closed. So once no one can submit a form at this point, you can give them a specific message and maybe who to contact if they still want to submit, or if they just have questions about that particular form. You can also set it up so that it will email you once the submissions are closed, maybe if it's a long ways down the road and you just need a reminder. You can save and enable, and once that happens, you don't have to do anything else. And you can click out of that pop-up. Another one is form notifications. You do the same thing, get add-ons, form notifications, and go ahead and click and allow or accept. And for this one, you can configure your notifications. And what this one will allow you to do is send a notification to you when someone has responded to a specific quiz or survey. And you can send it to more than one person, maybe you and whoever else is working on this project, or other teachers who are working on this particular project. And you can also notify the respondents. And if you're going to notify the respondents, you need to make sure that one of your questions is, what is your email address? So you would choose that. And once again, in this form, we don't have that. And you can type in what you would like the email to say, the subject line and the body, and go down here and click Save. And that will happen every time somebody fills out this form. It will notify me, and it will notify the person who submitted one. Maybe I just want it to notify the respondent, the person who submitted the form. I just click off the Notify Me. That's a very nice addition if you are dealing with parents or somebody outside of your classroom. Students see you every day. They can ask you in person. This would be great if you're looking for submissions from people that you don't see every day. someone that you don't keep in contact with regularly.